Now, the Supreme Court will deliver its judgment on February the 28th in a case challenging President Nangolo Mbumba's decision to extend the recent presidential election. The case brought by opposition leaders Panduleni Itula of the Independent Patriots for Change and Bernadus Swartbooi of the Landless People's Movement questions the legality of the president's extension of polling beyond the scheduled period. Meanwhile, the neighbouring country is observing a period of mourning following the passing of former President Sam Nujoma, who was the founding father of the Namibian Republic. Let's get more on the story. Khayelihle Khumalo joins me at the desk to have a conversation. Kai, nice to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Just remind us of the story. For a lot of people may not be too familiar with it, so let's just talk about what it's all about.
Well, certainly, Leanne. I mean, a very important story for the Namibian people. Obviously, you go back to those elections in November. So these two main opposition parties, they say quite a number of irregularities were committed. For example, they say that President Mbumba grossly violated the Electoral Act and also the country's constitution by virtue of extending the elections by 2 days because they say some Namibians were disenfranchised. They say certain regions that are perceived to be pro-SWAPO, that's where mainly people voted, and some of the strongholds of the opposition, people, they were not given an opportunity to vote, but also they want these results to be set aside, to be declared invalid. But of course, from the side of SWAPO, they do also have a legal representation where they say that these allegations are baseless, they're riddled with deficiencies. But also it's a very conundrum for Namibia, Leanne, as you know that from the 21st of March, that's when President-elect Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah will be taking an oath of office. So first female leader for Namibia, but you have all these, questions really just lingering around.
I mean, is there a chance that these results may be set aside? I mean, do they? Because we hear all of these contestations all the time in many countries around the world. I mean, we've even had contestations here in South Africa many times, but they never seem to be successful. What are their chances?
That's always a challenge, the post-election disputes. And in this regard, really, the opposition parties prefer the route to go to courts. But it's really always challenging, especially given the fact that to run elections, they require resources, the finances. And Namibia is a relatively small country. But hearing the arguments that were presented before the Supreme Court, you could really hear that the judges they were saying, have you provided evidence, have you adduced everything before us so that when we make a decision on the 28th of February, we're able to reach a logical conclusion. Indeed,
a logical conclusion, but all of this in the background, and before I let you go, former President Sam Nujoma passing away, and there's a period of mourning at the moment. There's also the funeral, which should be coming up as well. So this all happening while the country's in mourning.
Well, that's right, Leanne. And of course, we've seen an outpouring of condolences from far and wide here in South Africa. President Ramaphosa saying that Sam Nujoma was a very extraordinary leader, not really just fighting for the liberation of Namibia, but contributing immensely for South Africa's freedom. I mean, he spent a lot of time in exile. And also we've seen the AU boss, Mr. Faki Mahamat, saying that Africa is mourning the loss of one of the independence fathers, so to speak, but also getting this reaction from all corners of the continent, even, for example, Cuba, Leanne, where they're also observing this period as well, where they have the Cuban flags really being flown as half-mast, really showing to the very massive impact that Mr. Sam Nujoma had. But also we do understand that there was a meeting, the Namibian cabinet had been meeting in terms of the way forward for the preparations, in terms of the state funeral. So we still await for those details in terms of the way forward.
All right, so that was what I was hoping we'd get from you. So we're still not sure on those details, but I'm sure in the days ahead, if not the hours ahead, we should find out more. Khayelihle, always a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for keeping us abreast of these important international affairs, both on the continent and abroad, but this time focusing in on the happenings in Namibia.